Welcome to MindEcho, where we echo the knowledge that fuels curious minds. Today, we're diving into what could be the biggest discovery in history, or perhaps the biggest forgery. We are about to explore a story of people shrouded in mystery, surrounded by legends, and depicted in countless movies and books. The real shocker, however, is in the information that most of us have never encountered, or the information that has been deliberately hidden from us, or so it is said. Are you ready to uncover the mysterious truth about the Native Americans? In this video, we will not only recount the stories you've heard about them, but also venture into controversial territory that may leave many of you surprised, if not outright shocked. We'll cover information that's rarely mentioned in most sources, whether Western or Arabic. By the end of this video, you'll have learned about the hidden parts of the story of these people, their origins, their oppression, and perhaps a truth that was buried in time. Before we start, a quick reminder to those who haven't joined our family yet: hit that subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you never miss any of our future revelations. Now, let's dive into the story of the Native Americans and the shocking controversy surrounding them. But before we get to that, let's briefly review the common narrative presented by most American and European historians, especially for those who might not be familiar with the history of the American Indians, or as they are more commonly known, Native Americans. Native Americans, also known as American Indians, Ancient Americans, or Indigenous peoples, are the original inhabitants of the Americas. They have lived on these lands for tens of thousands of years before the arrival of European settlers. The story of their origins, their rich civilizations, and the tragedies they endured at the hands of colonizers is vast and complex. First, let's address a basic yet important question. Why are they called Indians? The term dates back to the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus, who, as we all know, is often credited with discovering America in 1492. Columbus was commissioned by Queen Isabella I of Castile to find a new route to Asia by sailing westward. When he reached the New World, he mistakenly believed he had arrived in India, specifically the East Indies, and thus referred to the inhabitants as Indians. This name stuck, and despite the diversity of these tribes, they were all lumped together under this one label. Over time, Columbus realized he had not reached Asia, but the term Indian continued to be used, later evolving into Native Americans as a way to distinguish them from people from the Indian subcontinent. Columbus's misidentification also led to the term Red Indians, referencing the perceived red hue of their skin, a term widely used during the colonial period. Let's delve a little deeper into the historical theories about how these tribes came to inhabit the Americas. According to scientists and historians, there are two main theories. The first theory suggests that the indigenous peoples migrated from North Asia, specifically Siberia, across the Bering Land Bridge during the last ice age, between 13,000 and 16,000 years ago. This theory is supported by DNA evidence showing links between Native American populations and peoples from North Asia. The second theory, though less commonly discussed, proposes that some tribes reached the Americas by sea before the arrival of the Siberian migrants. This theory aligns with some Native American creation myths, which tell of ancestors crossing vast oceans or being created by gods who brought them to these lands. Despite the various theories and legends, one thing is clear: the civilizations that emerged were among the richest and most complex in the world. These civilizations were marked by permanent settlements, advanced agriculture, and monumental architecture. Few of these civilizations left behind written records, but the Maya civilization is one of the most well-known exceptions. Unfortunately, most of the Maya's written works were burned by European colonizers who deemed them heretical, leaving us with only a handful of documents from which historians can piece together their history. The city of Tenochtitlan, built by the Aztecs, is perhaps the most striking example of the sophistication of these civilizations. Located where Mexico City now stands, Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities in the world at the time, with a population of over 200,000 people. This contradicts the often simplistic and savage image of Native Americans portrayed in Western culture, where they were depicted as primitive people more concerned with dancing, drinking, and even cannibalism. Now let's turn our focus back to Columbus, a figure both celebrated and vilified in history. Columbus's journey is often presented as the moment the Americas entered history, but was he really the first to reach these lands? And how did his arrival truly affect the native populations? Christopher Columbus, born in Genoa, Italy, in 1451, grew up during a time of great exploration and maritime discovery. Fascinated by the sea, he spent his early years learning about navigation and the potential for new trade routes. By the time he approached Queen Isabella of Spain, he was already convinced that sailing west would lead him to the riches of Asia. After securing funding from Isabella, Columbus set sail in 1492 with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. When he finally sighted land after weeks at sea, Columbus believed he had reached the islands off the coast of Asia. It wasn't until later that he realized he had discovered a new world. But what about the people who were already living there? Columbus's arrival marked the beginning of a brutal period of colonization, where European powers scrambled to claim these newly discovered lands and their resources. For the Native Americans, this period was catastrophic. The European colonizers brought with them diseases like smallpox, measles, and typhoid, to which the indigenous peoples had no immunity. It's estimated that these diseases wiped out 95% of the native population, a genocide by any measure. There are even accounts suggesting that European soldiers deliberately infected Native Americans with diseases by giving them blankets and other items contaminated with deadly viruses. This act of biological warfare was just one of many horrors that the Native Americans faced during this dark chapter of history. Here's where things get even more interesting. While Columbus is often credited with discovering America, there is compelling evidence suggesting that others arrived long before him. One such group is the Vikings, who are believed to have reached North America around 1000 AD. Archaeological findings in Newfoundland, Canada, suggest that the Vikings established a settlement there and may have had peaceful interactions with the indigenous peoples. This part of history is rarely mentioned in mainstream narratives. And now we arrive at the most controversial and intriguing part of today's video, an idea that could challenge much of what you've been taught about the history of the Americas. What if Arab explorers reached the Americas long before Columbus? This idea might sound surprising, but let's examine the evidence. Several Arabic and Western sources suggest that Arab explorers made their way to the Americas centuries before European explorers. One such source is the work of al-Masudi, a 10th century historian, who wrote about an adventurer named al-Kashkash. According to al-Masudi, al-Kashkash sailed across the Sea of Darkness in 889 AD and returned with tales of a new land, what many believe could be the Americas. Similarly, the historian al-Idrisi wrote about a mysterious land across the Atlantic in his book Al-Masalik wa al-Mamalik, describing it as a great land beyond the sea. These accounts suggest that Arab explorers might have reached the Americas as early as the 9th century, possibly influencing the cultures they encountered. Even more intriguing is the story of Abu Bakr, the emperor of the Mali Empire. In 1312, Abu Bakr abdicated his throne to embark on a transatlantic voyage with a fleet of 200 ships. According to some historians, Abu Bakr and his fleet may have explored the Americas long before Columbus. This theory is supported by various pieces of evidence, including the discovery of ancient West African artifacts in the Americas, which some believe were influenced by these voyages. But what about Columbus? Interestingly, there are claims that Columbus was aware of previous Arab exploration in the Americas before his own voyage. Some scholars suggest that Columbus employed Arab sailors for his journey due to their expertise in navigation and astronomy. Columbus even mentioned in his journal that the Native Americans he encountered wore cotton garments similar to those seen in Arab regions like Granada. Adding to this mystery is a map discovered by Turkish historians in 1929. This map, drawn by the Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis in 1513, shows detailed outlines of the American continent, including rivers, mountains, and coastal regions that Europeans supposedly hadn't reached by that time. How could Piri Reis have known this? Some speculate that he based his map on earlier sources, possibly even from Arab explorers who had already charted these lands. Here's where the story takes another interesting turn. There are accounts of ancient structures and artifacts being discovered in the Americas that some researchers believe were influenced by Arab explorers. These findings suggest that parts of Arab culture and knowledge may have been passed along to the indigenous peoples, contributing to the cultural mosaic of the Americas. Western sources also lend some credence to these theories. For instance, Professor Leon Vernell from Harvard University, in his book Africa and the Discovery of America, argues that the Mandinka people of West Africa, who had connections with Arab traders, may have established communities in the Americas long before Columbus's arrival. He cites linguistic, cultural, and agricultural evidence to support this claim. Another fascinating account comes from the monk Francisco Garces, who in 1775 discovered a tribe in New Mexico that appeared to have features and cultural practices aligning with those of African and possibly Arab origins. These accounts raise many questions. If Arab explorers did reach the Americas before the Europeans, what impact might they have had on the indigenous cultures they encountered? Could it be that the legacy of these early explorers has been overlooked or forgotten in the pages of history? So, what do you think? Is it possible that Arab explorers reached the Americas before Columbus? Could it be that the true history of the Americas has been hidden from us for centuries? The evidence, both from Arabic and Western sources, suggests that this might be the case. However, like so many aspects of history, the truth is often more complex and elusive than we imagine. This video has only scratched the surface of this controversy. There are many more books, documents, and artifacts that could be explored in future episodes. For now, I leave you with these questions. Why has this story been buried? What other secrets might be hidden in the pages of history? And most importantly, will we ever uncover the full truth? If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this theory. Could it be true? Or is it just another fascinating tale? Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious. As we echo the knowledge that fuels curious minds,